Hello, everyone. It's Jonathan Fishman from LeanLaw, and I have Loren Fogelman with me here today for our second series in the Path to Profit. We started this little online journey. Really, we started it last year, Loren and I, with a three-part episode that we did last year. It's all recorded, it's all online, and the technical difficulty I was trying to overcome was our blog post wasn't coming up, so I didn't have an ability to cite that, but we'll make sure that we email everyone the links to last year's seminar. So this is our three-part series of Path to Profit. Mm-hmm. We talked initially in January about developing a highly profitable niche for your business. And today we're going to focus on time management secrets for the busy accounting professional. And Loren will give sort of an opening and intro to that in just a minute. And then May 14th, is that the right date, or did we move
No, I think that we moved it up a week, actually, to a Friday.
Okay, so I think it's May.
Is it going to be 9th, maybe?
I think it's May 8th.
May 8th is what we were looking at,
Yeah.
yes.
So we're going to move that to May 8th, and that's ramp up your business, switch from an employee to a CEO mindset. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get going, and then we'll jump right into it. So a few things to note. So we're LeanLaw. We're a invoicing platform with deep integration to QuickBooks. A few notes about what's happening in our company. Number one, look for a big announcement in April with a more mid-market professional grade of LeanLaw that will be launched. That's a really exciting announcement. And in our meetups, which this community should get access to those meetups, we'll be doing some coaching about mid-market and how to address mid-market there. In addition, we do have another meetup, which is what we're talking about. That next meetup will be, I'm looking for the date, March 18th, and we'll discuss the second of a three-part series on how to service mid-market clients, and we'll talk about onboarding mid-market clients, which I'm doing right now, and it is a process. The other little announcement that we have for LeanLaw is that we hired a new person, Tracy Todd, and she is our customer success manager. And what that really means is that she'll be handling the onboarding aspect of bringing clients on. She'll also be supporting our LeanLaw Accounting Pro community. And most importantly, this year she will be drafting and stewarding our certification program. So you'll see some energy coming into our content to train people on how to use LeanLaw. And she will be directly interacting. She is a QuickBooks Pro advisor. Tracy's also a former college level teacher and a really nice person. Okay, enough on all that stuff. Let's focus that. Now, if anyone sees my head move over here, just so you know, I have two screens, and so I have some notes over here. So the first thing I want to do is, before we get into my first question, Loren, can you just seed us in to a little bit about what we're going to discuss on an overview level? Then I'll kind of get into our first questions with that, but I want to just set the stage a little bit for the audience. And before you do that, sorry. We really want this to be interactive. So please, if you have a question, chat us out. I can hear Loren already on her keyboard. She's typing a little. Don't be offended by that. She's just trying to be interactive. There's two of us. We're running this webinar ourselves. So we kind of have to fly the plane and change the engines at the same time kind of mindset. So please ask questions.
Not a very good time management strategy.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what she's going to tell us not to do. But ask questions, and we will do our absolute best to answer them in the context of that. We really want to hear from you. Loren, set the stage for us, please.
Absolutely. Basically, I am a sports psychologist turned pricing and profit coach. What I do is really help bookkeepers, accounting professionals to double their income working half the time by focusing on pricing strategies and really how to optimize their workflow as well as their business model. With today, what Jonathan and I realized is, okay, we're in the middle of tax season. You are all busy, whether you actually do taxes yourself or you help prepare them or whatever it is that you're doing. We wanted to really serve you for taking the time here today to focus on what are some of the things that you could do to really help manage your energy, as well as put some things in place that not only will make it easy to get through tax season if that's part of what you do, but also to allow for business growth without having to have it compromise other important parts of your lifestyle. So that is a little bit of what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah, so that's wonderful. And this is, listen, as a small business owner, it is such a, and LeanLaw is at this point where it's such an important time to understand where my time should go. How do I delegate? How do I allow structure to happen and not micromanage? And we're going to get to that. But so I want to start with this question, which is, you just mentioned niching, and
Mm-hmm.
we discussed that in great detail about how niching becomes more effective. Um, what does that have to do? You kind of just talked about time managing. What does that have to do with time management? What is,
Mm-hmm.
what's that about?
Well, on our last webinar, which you mentioned earlier, we did talk about niching, being able to really start to dive deep with a particular segment that you work closely with, figuring out who your ideal client is. As you do that, it actually goes hand in hand with time management in so many ways, because once you start working with a particular segment, whether it's attorneys, like what LeanLaw helps you with, or whatever that might be, you become not only more effective at what you do with how you work and how you help them, you also gain efficiencies as well. Part of what I'm looking at is, how do you, as an accounting professional, spend your time and energy? Because in the beginning, you're wearing all the hats, you're doing everything, you're probably putting some parts of your life on a back burner, and you need to get to a certain point, if you're continuing to build, where you don't sacrifice all of your time and energy in order to build your business. You deserve to put some of those things back. With that, what I look at is workflow, business models, but also what we talked about is, and as we mentioned earlier, when we were talking, Jonathan, is high performance. And I'd like to just talk about that a little bit. High performance is really looking at managing your energy, because you probably have sometimes the day when you're more productive and other times the day where you're really not as productive, and understanding those. It's really looking at 4 different aspects, which would be the physical part of energy, the main thing of functioning, fitness, breathing, sleeping. And then there's the emotional part. What are some of the things you do that really give you emotion, give you energy, and really build you up? And what are some of the things that just drain you emotionally? They might not be a really good fit for your business, whether it's tasks or people or some other things, or maybe just being in your own head too much. Looking at the mental part of it, which is understanding how you do talk to yourself, how you are using your time, the mindset of how you approach your business, because a lot of accounting professionals tend to have very high standards, and they tend to hold on to things to try to be too much in control, to maybe the detriment of their business or themselves. And then the last part is spiritual, because we need to be nurtured in many different ways. And spiritually isn't just on the religious sense. It's also following through on your word, having integrity, being able to really deliver on your promises. So those are some of the things that I look at. And there's times, Jonathan, when even for myself, I'm looking at all the things that I'm doing, and I might need to go on a task diet and get some things off my plate that really aren't helping me to move forward in the way I want my business to grow too. And that's true for the accounting professionals that I speak with as well.
So this is, I think, really important, because I want to make 2 notes here as to what I just heard from you. I think someone coming into this was thinking, okay, you're going to tell me how to use, Microsoft to-dos to become more effective. And I think this is important, because so many times when we think about this, we're so pragmatic when we use the word time management, and we think of it very utilitarian. Like, oh, what am I going to do to make it more efficient? Or am I going to, like I said earlier, delegate? And I think it's really important, because what you said were 2 things that I want to make sure we reinforce to the group. That's just, one, this is about your sense of self and the benefit of being high performance. I think I want to use your phrase when you said, I think you said high performance. The benefit of high performance, what I heard you say, was not just, hey, my business grows and grows more effective, but your sense of self grows, this balance of life, this workflow. So the tangible benefits are not just the business growth, but it's also you as a human being having balance. And what I've learned is that you do your best work when you're in balance. right? When you are just overwhelmed with work, you don't get you can never be effective. And then if you're drawn with your family obligations or your, other life obligations, you're not doing your best work. But I want to just remind the groups of the four things you just said, which was the physical side, the emotional side, the mental side, and the spiritual side. Those are four. Do you think are the areas of focus, or is that the mindset that you're coaching people into when they think about time management? So what do they do with those four things?
I first of all think it's about having awareness that you can't sacrifice yourself and your own needs as a person, a human being, in order to grow your business. In my opinion, you are more important than your business is. Because if you're not around, you don't have a business. You can't serve other people. I see so many accounting professionals, especially at this time of year, they're working 100-hour work weeks. And what if that wasn't necessary? What if you could still have a really profitable tax season without having to sacrifice your soul?
Yeah, you're gonna have to work more, right? There's just no way around it. There's a little bit of more work, but it's a question of, balance and coming up with some boundaries. Because I want to get to our next question with that, because this I think is important, because this is about yourself and decisions that you make about how you want to live your life, right? That's what I think that's really about. But then how do we then get this? So the next question is, so we talked about the time management secrets and for successful accounting professionals. How does that work? How do you take this sort of esoteric ideas about what I value and what's important and now translate that into a time management system? How do you make that transition?
Well, the very first thing is you have to value yourself before you can expect anybody else to value what you have to offer. Therefore, you want to consider boundaries and how much are you willing to give or allow to be taken from you before you start to have that burnout happen, before you start to just feel really drained and have other sacrifices as a result of your business or your clients. Some of the things that I look at as we're really talking about this is the concept of working in your business versus working on your business. A lot of times, accounting professionals get caught up in the day-to-day of all the tasks that need to be done in their business. But as accounting, the whole profession is moving in a different arena because of technology and some of the things that are happening to the industry in and of itself. Working in your business isn't your highest value. It's really about looking at the knowledge that you bring and being able to carve out some time as to advance your business in order to really start competing for clients because you're focusing on the tasks and your time. So that's the first thing is how do you start to work on your business in order to strategically grow it?
But hold on, before you go there, I just want to pause you. I'm sorry, but I want to understand. Just give a tangible example.
Sure.
So the way I have sort of two thoughts there, and I want to make sure that I'm in alignment with you. So working in your business means I might be doing the bookkeeping. Right?
That's the day-to-day. Absolutely.
Is working on your business meaning I want to develop a partnership with a CPA, I'm a bookkeeper, with a CPA firm so that I get work? Is working on your business going to QuickBooks Connect so that you can develop relationships and other skills? Well, how do you define working on your business versus, in is pretty obvious.
Sure. Working in your business is the day-to-day tasks that you're doing either on the front end or the back end. Working on your business is really having an idea of which direction you want to take your business in. What are some of those things that might not give you an immediate payoff, but if you continue to really focus on those things, it's going to take your business in a certain direction. As you mentioned with those two examples, it might be forming a strategic referral partnership. It could be going to QuickBooks Connect or another industry conference where you're gaining insights and skills as to how to be able to be more effective, productive, how to grow, how to improve a workflow. It's all of those things that are those advanced moves that you usually never have time for.
Yeah, and I think that what I hear is that, valuing that and having it in a system and structured puts you in a position to be successful to work on your business versus in it. You can never really grow if you can't work on your business, right?
Right. Well, that's the other part is, okay, now people listening might be getting the concept, but they're busy every day. How do you make room for it? My feeling is that if it's not on your calendar, then it's an idea and not an action step.
Yeah. Mazel tov to that. Yes, absolutely. meaning like, it's like, you can say you're going to go to the gym, right? And you can even buy the gym membership. But if you don't get up at 6 in the morning and show up at the gym and have some accountability to it, it doesn't happen, right?
Right. And I have a couple other points that I want to just quickly touch on before we move on. Is instead of trying to adapt to someone else's system, which is why we're not talking about the technical parts of time management, they're out there. You don't need that from me. But instead of trying to adapt to someone else's system, and that's why most time management systems fail, you want to create a system that works for you. And that's the first thing. The other thing you want to do is understand your highest value. And your highest value lies in what you know, not what you do. You actually end up getting paid more when you lead with your expertise and advisory services than when you lead with the compliance technical part of your bookkeeping business. And when we talk about systems, time management, the important thing is that you might be wired to be a doer, and you do and think you have to do more. The solution lies, however, in letting go rather than adding on.
Okay, let's summarize that and then we'll move on. So what we just said in that little segment was, number one, you've got to differentiate from working in your business, working on your business. And two, you made 3 good points, which was defining your highest value versus what you can do, letting go, and there was one other that I wrote a scribble.
If it's not on the calendar, then it's an idea.
It was your system or something.
Oh,
create your own system. And I wanted to summarize it because sometimes we get going and I want the audience to like get back. So it's work.
Jonathan, you and I are rapid fire.
Yeah, working on. I think the 2 biggest notes there were really the letting go piece, but differentiating, am I working in my business or on my business? And honoring your highest value and saying, that's what I want to sell. Don't commoditize it with bookkeeping. So, we keep saying these folks are pulled in so many different directions. And, what do you feel like are the biggest time wasters? I mean, this is what you're doing every day is talking to this community. Like, what do you think is like really squandering people's time?
Right. Well, one of the things that Amanda put in the chat was really about avoiding rabbit holes and going down a rabbit hole. So one of the
chasing, I think there was some squirrel chasing. Oh no, you said.
Oh, that was me. I chase squirrels sometimes.
Squirrels,
she goes down rabbit holes. I chase squirrels. And part of that is because you end up having something occur and then some crisis happens and you don't have a plan or a system as to how to respond to those things when you're all of a sudden being pulled in another direction, or that you're not really focused on where you want to grow. You're growing organically or letting other people dictate how to grow your business. And because of that, once again, there's a lack of setting boundaries and really staying in your lane, so to speak. But one of the things that pulls accounting professionals in so many different directions is really continuing to do work that's below your pay grade. It doesn't mean that your firm doesn't offer it. It's recognizing, once again, that your highest value is your expertise as opposed to the compliance piece. The more that you can get some of those things off of your plate and focus on your expertise, the more profitable that your business will be, as well as the more that people will start to pay you for your services. They'll pay you more than what your currently rate is right now. I can guarantee that because I do that all day, every day, is help you find money in your business without additional time start working. The next thing is understanding the high cost of interruptions. That might be having an open door policy where people can call you at any time of the day or night. that you're the first line of answering on your phones or your emails, looking at technology disruptions, pings that you have coming up from texts or email notifications. All those things are disruptions. The thing to recognize from a neuroscience point of view is how our brains really function, and they're not made to multitask. If you're working on something that requires concentration, and then you have one of these interruptions happen, you might think, oh, it's just going to take 1 or 2 minutes, but it disrupts your train of thought. You're then spending probably more than the 1 or 2 minutes you thought you would be with looking at this other thing. When you then go back to the thing that you were working on, it might take you up to 20 minutes to regain that same level of concentration, which is huge. Therefore, a 1 or 2 minute interruption might turn into 25 or 30 minutes of lost, optimized, productive time. What I encourage you to do is to really turn off all of those notifications and not have an open door policy where people can access you anytime that they want to. Set that boundary once again. Value yourself and your expertise. Turn off the notifications and the pings, the emails, the phones, whatever it might be when you're really doing this work that requires your concentration in order to be more efficient with your time.
So I also think there's something here. Well, because I'm going to get to this next question. I was almost leading into it, and I realized that I just kind of want to summarize what you said because I think it's really important.
Please.
I fall prey to this, and I think the first thing I heard that was really important was this idea of recognizing your pay grade and delegating it and focusing on that. And I think the derivative effects, as you first initially said, was you'll get paid more. You'll be doing tasks that are valued higher, and you'll get paid more. But I think what's just as important is this idea of the relationship between overreaction, like, oh, the client called, I've got to stop what I'm doing and respond to them, especially in law firms, because lawyers can be somewhat demanding, but at the same time, they're setting this expectation about how quickly you will call and really defining what is urgent. I'm not even using the word emergency. What is urgent and what is a reasonable call? I always want to try to get right back to someone, but to your point, you're here and then all of a sudden you go back into that headspace and craft something and you're trying to get back and it's really a drag. So what I heard you say was it's like this discipline that you need to have to say, you know, I'm going to turn that off to focus on what I want, what's in front of me.
What I actually will say is that when I help my clients create packages for their services, we actually build into their package how their clients are going to reach out to them and what their response time is. And in that way, we're teaching our clients how to communicate with us and how we're going to be able to get back. It just becomes part of the work agreement because your time is highly valuable and we give it away too freely.
Yeah, you were kind of seeding me into my next question, which is, you know, the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. And of course that plays into this initial relationship with the client. So, you know, how do you define that? Because they seem really similar, efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, they go hand in hand. Basically, efficiency emphasizes time and is connected to a dollar per hour rate. Effectiveness values knowledge, and that really goes well with value-based pricing. I want to just give a story about how to differentiate the two. A while ago, I was working with actually someone that had a house painting business. We were working on how his team could go ahead and be more efficient, and he was putting it into place. And he told me about this story, and this is a true story. He told me about the story about he dropped off his work crew. They went to work painting this house. The things that we put in place as far as systems for more efficiency worked great. Then the owner of the house comes and looks at the house, looks at him, looks back at the house, and this my client asks, "What's the matter? Don't you like the job?" The house owner said, "It looks great, but I never asked to have my house painted." Then when my client looked at the work order they were supposed to paint the house next door. And therefore, they were really efficient, but they were efficient at doing the wrong thing. Because
I'm laughing because she told me the story in our prep call, and I was like, come on, is that really real? Like someone,
yeah,
like no one,
absolutely
hey guys,
real.
hey guys, what are you doing? They must have done it like a day.
Yeah, they painted the house in a day. And with spraying, it's totally possible now. But the other thing to look at is that you want to lead with being effective, which sometimes isn't always efficient in the long run. But you want to be really effective, focusing on the knowledge of what's really going to get results and is in the best interest of your client, coming from a place of being a trusted advisor. What is effective might not always be the quickest fix, because sometimes the quickest fix is like putting a Band-Aid on something, but it's going to create problems down the road. Therefore, lead with being effective, and then the efficiency comes
Let me give you
behind that.
Let me give you what I think is a perfect example. I'd like to hear if the group this is right. So many times when you're onboarding a client, they're coming from a non-QuickBooks environment or even a QuickBooks desktop to an online environment. You have a lot of legacy data that may or may not be valid, meaning it could be bad data. And you're talking to the client, you're saying it's going to cost X dollars. The right way to do it is to reset up the chart of accounts and to bring in things in a very manual nature so that the data you bring in is the data that's clean. The efficient way, it's not effective, but efficient, would just to be use the automated tools that QuickBooks brings in and have it all pile into the new online version. So if I'm coming from desktop to online, I use the automated tool and I have less control over that historical data. And the outcome, if you're not arguing, but you're trying to sway the client, hey, you have to pay me a bunch more money because it's more manual. But in the long term, it's going to be more effective to you because you're going to have better data. And that's like an argument that not an argument, but it's a position that the accounting professional has to take in that onboarding. So talk a little bit more about how onboarding can mitigate some of this, because we talked about that, staging the relationship.
Oh, we did talk about it. I believe that a lot of times bookkeeping professionals onboard the clients too quickly because that they're actually leaving a lot of money on the table. I teach my clients to actually slow it down. What I teach, and you can put this into play, do it right from this and then start making money. But what I teach is that the very first thing you want to do is have a consultation. And from the consultation, you want to go ahead and enroll them into a diagnostic review. This is similar to you taking your car to an auto mechanic. And before they get to work, they're lifting up the hood, they're checking under the hood, they're putting on some wires to scope things out, and then they come back to you with a long list of all the things that need to be done. Then you're deciding together what to do now and what to postpone for a later date, also knowing how much everything's going to be. What this means for you is you want to have maybe your 16-point checklist of what you want to be looking at to really get into someone's books, and just look around. You're not doing any fixing, you're not touching anything, you're just scoping things out. Then you're giving them that information about what needs to be done to be able to get their books up to speed. This could be a standalone product, or it could be something that they actually then ask you to do the next step, which is the cleanup. What happens here, the reason this is so effective is because now you've really done a very thorough diagnostic. You're going into your cleanup job having a much more accurate idea as to what's going on in their books, because often they'll tell you that their books are one way, and then you start doing the work and you realize it's not that. One of my clients, when we did this, she would just go ahead and start cleaning up their books as she was doing their monthly work. We separated it out. She now gets paid for the diagnostic. So she's just doing a review and giving them that report and recommendations. She's getting paid for that. She just did a cleanup job on a client. So this is one of our mutual clients, Jonathan. And she ended up getting $8,000 for a cleanup job that she normally would have done for free as she was doing her monthly bookkeeping service for them. That was huge. What a difference it makes for her business now.
So
being able to do that.
Yeah, I want to add a little nuance to that from our
Please.
perspective. Number one is the importance of this, essentially this diagnostic or triage or whatever you label it, is that what's important is that it has to be able to sit independent of all other work, meaning that there's value in itself.
Yes.
And you need to articulate that value up front, and it's critical because, and it's not just the chart of accounts. I also think that you should be assessing the workflows, meaning how they're doing things. You should be particularly looking at collections and how long collections take relative to law firms, what tools are using collections, how do they use trust accounting, how they use trust accounting as a function of collections, and just as importantly, the reconciliation of their trust accounts. So that at the end, you've assessed the fidelity of the data, the inefficiency or efficiency of the workflows, and you found specific reporting and or functions. You say, here's this. Now, you can bundle it as a pricing strategy that says, hey, pay me to do this, and then if you hire me, I'll do some bundle with that to make it more palatable. But the key points is the data, the workflows, and the reconciliation of the trust account. And that, I'm sorry, one more thing.
Please.
By coming in with that program, that checklist, that offering, it sets you as the expert. I understand all these facets of your finances, and I can help mentor and change them and modernize that. And I'm telling you from my perspective of listening to all the clients that are coming into the LeanLaw queue, that is what they're asking for. They are not asking for just bookkeeping tasks. They're asking for that tutelage. Okay, so.
Okay. And I just want to say, I didn't realize that the person I was talking about was here listening, but apparently she affirmed what we did together. So, so there you go.
Oh, awesome. Good. That's good work. I'd like to know more about that on board.
We were going to talk about a highly profitable strategy.
Oh, I know where I am. I was trying to phrase the question the right way. So,
okay.
You know, I guess what is that strategy? A highly profitable strategy. And, you know, what are these keys to freedom?
Okay, there's 5 steps in this highly profitable strategy. Aside from what I just talked about with the onboarding part of it, these are the 5 steps, and you can actually grab them at businesssuccesssolution.com/time. And I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat also. But the very first thing you want to do is decide that you want to move in a certain direction, that you want to go ahead, take advantage of really what your best work is. You are going to take charge, where before you just responded and put out everybody else's fires at the expense of your own. So you have to make a decision that you are going to reclaim your life as you grow your business. That's the first thing, is make a decision. The second thing you want to do is what I call ditch it. So decide it is the first step, ditch it is the second step. Look at the things you're doing that are ineffective, you don't enjoy doing, they feel like punishment or they're painful. Those are the things, or maybe they're people. We hold on to people that are not ideal for much too long. So how do you, get help to fire that non-ideal client or let go of that non-ideal employee and start to ditch things that are energy drains for you? That's the first thing. The next thing is defer it. Defer it is looking at your priorities, figuring out what is the thing that you need to do right now and what things need to be deferred for later on down the road. A perfect example is that we're coming right up on March 15th, where things need to be filed for businesses. Because of that, you might have someone that has put off bookkeeping for an entire year, and now they're reaching out to you because they want to have everything in by March 15th. Well, you know what? That's their priority, not necessarily yours at this time of year. How do you actually defer that for after the deadlines and then get to that work? So that's an example of deferring it. The fourth step is do it. These are your action steps. These are the things that you're ready to start doing now and moving forward to, because they're aligned with the direction you want to take your business in. And then step number 5 is delegate it. Those things in your business that are below your pay grade or that need to happen, However, you don't enjoy doing them. They're punishment, or they're painful, or they're draining for you. You want to get some, it could be your answering the phones, it could be your email management. You want to get some of those things delegated out and off your plate. They're done in your business. However, you're not the one doing them. It's similar to looking at yourself being Frank Sinatra. You are Frank Sinatra. All he had to do was go up on stage and play the piano. He had a great time and he was well paid for that. I want you to be Frank Sinatra, where you have supports behind you. You have your roadies, you have your managers. They're doing the heavy lifting so that you can really show up and do your best work. Those are the 5 steps, Jonathan.
Somehow John Legend came to my mind, but and I think I'm going to say these again because I think this is important, because sometimes these things are a little kitschy because they have 5 things. But if you really think about what Lauren just said, decide it, ditch it, defer it, do it, delegate it. I think that process, and you really take a time and say, okay, take each section and listen to what she just wrote. I do think you'll find value, but here's the thing I want to know, because I deal with a lot of the accounting community. You can grow the operational structure of your business in a very cost-effective way. And many times when we get to that delegate point or the ditch it point, you're like, well, I can't afford to do this. There's this money obstacle because we think. But if you think about all of the virtualized receptionists, if you think about the idea of outsourcing some of the bookkeeping and building teams, if you think about some of the SaaS tools that can automate or create efficiencies, especially if you're doing team and team collaboration, there are tools that are very, very modest on an incremental basis. You can even get a virtual assistant that will work by the minute. I had one at one point that this person would just do tasks for me and they charged me by the minute. That's it. There's a per minute fee and I'd get a very modest bill. So I want everyone to know that this idea that I can't afford it is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, certainly there's cost involved, but what's the opportunity cost of doing the task versus having it done for you? What does that give you in terms of joy and or freedom to go out and do other things? So I just want to make that point because I think a lot of people.
And the other question to ask yourself is, what's the cost of continuing to hold on to it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of people don't quantify that. They just do it, right? Because we
give our time away too freely, and your time is your highest value.
And we all, I think, by nature, if we're in the accounting business in any capacity, we're doers and givers, right? So like I met with an investment banker today. That guy's not a giver. Like he's like, what are you going to give me? Right? He wants to do a deal. And like my value to him is what he can earn off of me. Right? That's it. And he's a nice guy. I'm overcharacterizing him. He's actually very generous. But the point I'm making is, by nature, bookkeepers are huggers, they're givers, and I think they're too forthcoming of their time. So let's keep this moving forward. So everything goes well, right? But sometimes things go south, and you get stressed, you get overwhelmed, especially during this season, tax season. So I guess the question I have, Lauren, is that so if they do these 5 Ds and they come up with these systems and they value themselves, what do they do when something goes wrong? Because something will go wrong. So how do you manage that moment?
But before I moved into the price and profit coaching, I did sports psychology, working with very, very high achieving athletes. This is where I learned that the best athletes, not only do they train for their A game, they also train for the mistakes that might throw off their A game. That means that they have plan A, however, they also have plan B, plan C, plan D. It makes a big difference because at some point the unexpected will occur. If you have an idea as to how to respond to those unexpected things, then you're more likely to not let it fully throw you off. You'll bounce back a lot quicker. And that is something really to think about. It's not that you want to invite things that unexpected happen, but it happens. Systems go down, you can't get access. someone is not showing up when they're supposed to, and you were relying on them for that next thing that needed to be done. These things happen, and simply having an idea as to how you want to have that backup game plan will make a big difference for you. And once again, things happen, especially during tax seasons, because there's a feeling of being rushed. There's a deadline. There's a lot of urgency that happens. Once again, what do you do when someone calls you at the last minute? Or when someone is not getting everything to you in a timely manner? You don't need to be chasing them. You want to have your processes in place or your systems on how you deal with those things. Because once again, this raises a standard of people working with you. You're educating them about how you work with them. Plus, it maintains your energy. Just because someone else is having a crisis doesn't mean it needs to become your emergency. Plan how you want to respond. And so once again, overall, don't just have plan A. Think about the backups. Recognize that crisis will occur. Know how you want to respond to them. An example is when someone comes to you that all of a sudden wants everything done, the whole year's worth of cleanup, and to have things ready to be filed for March 15th, you can give them 3 options, which is what I teach my clients to do, is to offer 3 options. Okay, if I had to drop everything and do this, you are paying a premium price for me to do that. It's like sitting in a first class seat on an international flight to South America. So you pay a premium for that seat of working with you. If they are okay for having you do some of the necessities, but they're willing to wait until after tax season is over to do the cleanup work, then they're maybe paying a business coach seat, a business class seat. You know, it's not the first class seat, but they're still paying a premium. And then if they want to maybe wait 2 months afterwards for you to do the cleanups and really delay the job, then they're possibly paying the price of a coach seat on your plane. So think of it that way, is that your time is premium, and sometimes you can change your pricing. It's similar to surge pricing with hotels and Uber, that when your time is really at a premium, you can adjust your prices accordingly, and then you can give them options. And if you need to move some things aside because someone's paying that first class ticket, then you're happy to do it.
Well, so I had one joke, which is it's like the difference between a glass of champagne, a beer, and a soda, right? Like walk into the first class, they give you champagne. I want to add a little bit of structure to this because I've in a different life, I helped some companies about this plan B. If you kind of think of the contingency planning in 4 buckets, you know, one is your sort of hardware software world. Like if everyone works on a computer and that computer died, what computer would you use, right? So it's just like, what's your hardware backup plan? If my phone dies, what do I do? So you just kind of have some contingencies. I have lots of computers. If one breaks, I can go to a second one. The second is your people, human resources. So if you're really dependent on very specific people for very specific things, you ask the question, what do I do if that person was sick? What if I do if that person quit? Meaning, are there people that you contract in or help you do that? The third thing is business relationships. So what happens if a business relationship starts to go in a different direction? And we talk a lot, you and I talked before this about statement of work. The idea of being really specific about structuring how you're going to work with people and articulating that very explicitly in your statement of work, and being prepared to have those difficult conversations, which you and I both know a lot of people shy away from it. And the last one I think about is finance. What if I need quick capital for whatever reason, a line of credit, whatever I might use? So thinking about those B plans in those buckets can be helpful instead of just thinking kind of loosely as to what my plan B is. Okay, let's keep moving because we're getting towards the end.
Yeah.
You said yes, okay.
I'm good.
So as an accounting professionals grow their practice and they gain momentum, you've talked about, like, in the past, 3 obstacles. So what are those obstacles that people sort of have as they start to get into that curve, that growth?
Okay, this is a mindset thing. So it's our own obstacles that we put on ourselves, but eventually you will hit a wall. What is your response when you hit a wall? And it might change depending on the circumstances, but the very first person hits a wall, they just say, okay, I'm not meant to be doing this. It's not working. They go back to what they were doing before, even though that might not have been as engaging or effective. I call those people the retreaters. They go back to the familiar and their comfort zone instead of continuing to stretch themselves and challenge themselves. And then there's that second person who also hits the wall. This second person, I call them marinators. What they do is they step back, they do research. They're Googling, they're talking to their associates, they're maybe putting questions in Facebook groups. They're stepping back, they're getting research once they know how they want to move forward, because they don't like having risk. They want to minimize it as much as possible. Then the marinators start to move forward once again. And then the third type of person who is going to hit that wall, what these people do is they understand the power of momentum. They're not going to let anything get in their way. They're looking for any way above it, through it, around it, whatever needs to happen in order to keep on moving forward, because it takes less energy to continue moving forward and course correcting than it does to have starts and stops. And these are your implementers.
Yeah, and I think that's important to think about that in the context of, you know, having an honest conversation with yourself, because a lot of things I think people don't admit to themselves, the retreater mindset. And you can even be an implementer and have some aspects of the retreater mindset. I don't believe that it's complete absolute.
No, it's not.
And you know, I'm a marinator sometimes like crazy. You know, I'll go around the subject like crazy, but in other contexts, I'm totally like, okay, let's rip the Band-Aid off and go at it. So do you find that, Lauren, and how do you sort of coach people through that maybe it's not always absolute? Is it more about just recognizing, okay, what am I doing in this moment, and trying to cue them back to saying, hey, like a self-awareness thing?
It's not absolute with people, which means that we're evolving and changing all the time. I believe it's about understanding their priorities, which are the things that we need to focus on, and what are the things that maybe are distractions. That's one thing. And the majority of times, the reason we hold back is because we know what we want, but when we start to think about what needs to be done, fears come up, contradictory beliefs, overwhelm. That's where a lot of times we'll have conversations in order to be able to look at those things and maybe approach them in a different way that feels genuine and authentic to them. Or maybe we need to reframe them and look at them from a slightly different perspective in order for them to be able to release the resistance and then start to move forward. Plus, the other part is a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we feel that we need to do it all ourselves. And my approach is really to team up with my clients and do things along with them, because some people just need more hand-holding than others do.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs in general are very controlling, like they want
we are
to do it. And I think that so the mindset of this community, the accounting community, you and I talked about this prep session, is that by the nature of reconciliation being success, right? At the end of the day, if everything reconciles, we're like success, right? That's kind of like what we've been trained. And with that is almost a sense of control. Like if I can reconcile it, I can control it. I have to be in the numbers. I can't trust someone else. Part for the fidelity of it, part because your name might be on it, especially if you're a tax preparer or something of that nature. And I think that translates into the macro sense of the behaviors that, you know, it's hard to let go and understand that, you know, making a decision about answering your phone is not the same as stamping that the account is reconciled, right? You're just answering the phone and you train someone to do it. And that can take off a certain amount of time for you. And I'm just saying that that's kind of one of these ideas that people might turn into a marinator and have this indecisiveness, because at the end of the day, I feel it comes back to control. Okay, last question before we wrap, which is, so, you know, you really are about trying to inspire people. I mean, that's really a mantra of yours, so that they can achieve, you know, this is your line, they can achieve more with less time. So we talked a little bit about setbacks in the context of Plat B, but I really want you to speak more into the psychology of it. So like, how, especially, you know, fears and doubts and failures that are going to occur. So how do you help people deal with that sort of mindset of it?
That happens to all of us. Sometimes it takes courage, not confidence. This can be really difficult, especially if you're a perfectionist and you don't like making mistakes. What I've seen is that what moves people forward is that there's something that's driving them forward. Also recognizing that sometimes you have to be willing to fail in order to succeed, which is true for many, many startups. And we can get off on a whole tangent in that. And I want to just really keep it to this particular teaching point. Basically, I teach about a new spin on failure, and recognizing that setbacks are necessary in order for you to have success, because success is often messy. So what you want to look at is 4 different things when you have this new spin on failure. You want to look at the fact that maybe there's a different perspective or angle that you can look at this from, because there's so many successes that are really tucked into any one failure. It's not an absolute, like you were talking about before, Jonathan, and I agree with you. It's that there's successes, but we focus on the fact that we didn't hit that number, or this outcome didn't happen. But what about all the good that came because you stretched or challenged yourself or did something? So really change or alter your perspective. The other part of it is that when something doesn't happen, then a lot of times our inner talk starts to beat up on ourselves. We judge ourselves as being not worthy, or calling ourselves name. We're much more brutal to ourselves often than we would ever be to another person that didn't quite reach that outcome. I would say start to remove the personal judgment, which is easier said than done. I totally get that. But recognize that you are so much more than any one outcome or action.
Totally.
Any one outcome or action does not define who you are as a human being. The third one is that you want to come from this as seeking mastery, because people who are masters recognize that they are students first. They're looking to stretch themselves, challenge themselves, because that way there's always room for improvement. Therefore, instead of being a perfectionist, seek excellence and mastery, which gives you some room for not always hitting the mark, but sometimes you're going to miss the mark, but you've learned so much because you stretched and challenged yourself. And then the last one is recognize there's insights with anything that you do that really allows you to grow and gain better insight, understanding, or move forward in a certain direction on your path. So it's new spin on failure, which is about changing your perceptions, removing personal judgment, seeking to be a master, where you're a student first, and then finding the insights to be gained, even though you might not have achieved the outcome that you wanted.
Yeah, I have 2 kind of personal comments. That when you talked about entrepreneurship and this idea that you always have to be right to move forward or have to know all the facts, I always say this, this has become kind of one of my lines that I say that people laugh at, but I'll say that, I may not be right, but I'm not wrong. And what that means is, in general, I'm going in the right direction with this idea, this strategy, this objective. And I really won't know if I'm fully right until I get there. And along the way, I may pivot along because I learn and change, but I'm not wrong. And I really, that's by knowing you're not wrong, it's a fundamental basis or belief that you can move forward. I don't know that I'm right, but I know I'm not wrong, so I move forward. And the other thing I want to talk about in failure is that I can think of 2 that were really formative, that emotionally beat me up, but I came out of it using some of these same tactics. I weren't as well structured as yours. Once I got fired from a job, like in my 40s, I got fired from a job, which is like weird for me because I've never lost a job that way. I've never failed. And when I walked out, I had this really amazing key learning about how I was such the wrong fit for that job, and how it was a gift that gave me to end that relationship. And I would have done the exact same thing. And it took me a few minutes, but then I realized this didn't define me. It actually became this point of strength. And I can say it out loud. I got fired. Wow. Because it's still the stigma that I have. The second is one of my companies, it didn't fail that I owned, but it didn't succeed. And in the end, that's just the nature of the game, is that we're all on this journey, and sometimes things are home runs and sometimes they're just singles and sometimes we swung and missed. But at the same time, every time we're learning and growing, and you get to that point where you fully can become a master. Okay, we're out of time. I want you to close it and give us a big summary of what we learned today, if you could. Not in the minutia,
Yeah.
but high level for me, Lauren.
Absolutely. Connect with your value first before you can expect anybody else to. Your highest value is what you know, not what you do. Look at the things that you're holding on to that are below your pay grade, and come back and join us for our next one, because my last takeaway is start to shift from an employee to an entrepreneur mindset.
And I'm going to add a little bit, because I think the first part of what we talked about was the psychology of yourself and what's important. Then we talked about some very specific tactics about how you can look at your time and look at your time management as you can do that. And then lastly, we kind of went back and said what gets in your way of being successful. So our next webinar will be May 8th. It's Ramp Up Your Business, Switch from an Employee to a CEO Mindset. That will end the series. I'm sure Lauren and I will come up with another one, three-parter for the latter part of the year. I know I've enjoyed this, and I think Lauren also enjoys this. So we'll do that. The meetup is March 18th. For LeanLaw, you will all get notices about that. I want to make sure my date is right. Yes, March 18th at 1 Mountain, 3 Central, 12 Pacific. And you will all have opportunities to reach out to Lauren and I if you have any questions or follow-ups that you want to do from here.
I put a link in the chat. If anybody resonates with what we talked about, would like to talk further about how to grow your own profitable business, I can be reached at businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. And it's an opportunity for us to have a conversation as to really how to take you and your business on a path to profits without having it compromise your lifestyle.
Amanda asked, it was physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. That was the fourth of that point that Lauren was making earlier about lifestyle. The physical self, the emotional self, the mental self, and the spiritual self. You're welcome, Amanda. Lauren, thank you for your collaboration, your partnership. I really thoroughly enjoy these conversations. I wish you well. And to the group that joined us today, thank you for being part of our LeanLaw community. Thank you for attending. And do reach out if we can be of help and assistance. So I wish everyone a really good day. And I'll talk to you soon, Lauren.
Take care.
Bye.